In this session, which is dedicated to education, to educational strategies, to promoting girls in STEM, in this particular session, we are very happy to be part of the UNESCO Campus. And we have online with us high school classes from 6 different countries, as you could hear from the opening remarks this morning. Before I present the classes to you and before we get into conversations with our wonderful guests today, I would just like to remind you a little bit why we are here today, why we are celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. It is because only 1 in 3 researchers is a woman, and it is because we have many problems to solve and we need all the brain power we can get to solve those problems. So having more women in research means better research, means different perspectives. Very often, in particular in the health sciences, women will bring some perspective that is specific for women's issues as well, and therefore advance our knowledge in that particular domain. So we are here because we really do want women to be a bigger part of the scientific community, and we are here because we want to promote the interest of girls in sciences and the career path of young women scientists, and then also the leadership roles of women scientists moving on. As we heard this morning, it is indeed very important to have young girls involved in science, in STEM, and we do need maybe a different approach to make sure that they actually are interested in STEM education. So that's why it's very important for us also to be here in the context of the UNESCO Campus. It is important for us to hear from high school students. It is important from us to provide some information to high school students and to engage in this dialogue in the context of the campus. So the campus, UNESCO Campus, was created in 2014, and it's a program really to exchange with students aged 13 to 18 from all around the world, with UNESCO experts and other experts on specific issues. And we are very, very happy that today we can engage in this conversation around the importance of women in science. So I'm very pleased to present the guests that we have here today. Justine Sass, the Chief of Section of Education for Inclusion and Gender Equality from UNESCO. Sunshine De Caires, the 2023 Young Talent from the UNESCO L'Oréal for Women in Science Caribbean Region Program, and it was the first year of the Caribbean Region Program. So Sunshine is kind of the first of the first in the region. And then Salma Silambe, astrophysicist who is following us from Senegal, and I do hope that she is connected online. We also are very happy to have here with us in the room the students from Lycée Saint-Exupéry de Créteil, La Classe de Madame Achour, and we are very happy that they managed to come in person to be with us today, and encourage them to also ask some questions both in English and in French, and to engage in a conversation with us. And online, as we said, we have 6 classes from 6 different countries. And I'll let you know a little bit about who they are. Here we go. So we have a class ISC London from the United Kingdom, represented by Ilaria Malozzi, who is the French teacher in the class. And we have Winner and Shiomi, who will be the 2 spokespersons for that class. We then have the National College, Tudor Vladimirescu from Romania, represented by Daniela Ileana Bilsenau, the English and Italian teacher in that class. And the 2 spokespeople are Karina Maria and Andy Cosmin. Then we have the Wesley High School Otukpo from Nigeria, represented by Onu Oyoga, Head of Science Department, with the 2 spokespeople, Mary and Deborah. I really welcome you all here. I hope you can hear us well, and I hope we'll have a good conversation. British Isle International School is another school that is connected from Yaoundé, Cameroon, They are represented by Arlette Ndonge, science teacher, and Sarah and Norchelle Garciela are the two spokespeople. So the spokespeople are those who are going to be convening and conveying questions from the classes that are online. Then we have a school from Greece, Hellenic College of Thessaloniki, represented by Anastasia Psalida, who is the head of International and European Program. And the two spokespersons are Caris and Nicoleta Maria. And the last but not least is a school from Portugal, Oporto International School, represented by Susie Johnston, area leader of science, and then as two spokespeople, Maria Luisa and Sofia. So very, very happy to have you all online, very happy to be able to interact with you today and to tell you a little bit more why women in science matter and what are the different ways in which we can improve education in STEM, in particular for girls. So I will start with my first questions to Justine. Justine Sass, as I said, is the chief of the section of Education for Inclusion and Gender Equality at UNESCO. She, for the past 25 years, has championed gender equality, girls and women empowerment, and the right to education and health. Within UNESCO, Justine has also moved a lot. She worked in Asia-Pacific Regional as Asia-Pacific Regional Advisor for Health Education in our Bangkok office, and then a senior program specialist in the health and education section here in Paris. So Justine, what are some reasons why girls are not pursuing science? This is one of the questions everybody always asks. Why don't girls go to science more?
So I'd like to first just start with thanking you for this invitation to be here today. I think for us at UNESCO headquarters, we don't often have enough opportunity within the education sector to exchange with students and young people, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity to do so. The numbers that you mentioned, 1 in 3 women in science research, I think this is an important figure, but it's important to look what happens before that. And we can see it even in the very early years when children are 2, 3, 4, and they begin to already be given messages about what girls and boys are supposed to do, who they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to play with. These already begin to influence their pathways. And so if we look at higher education, we can see that very big differences in women's participation in STEM. You've heard some, for those of you that were here this morning, you've heard some of this. At the most, we have 1 in 4 higher education graduates who are graduating as women with a STEM degree, and this is the case in high-income countries and low-income countries, really across the board. The numbers are most frightening, I'd say, in terms of ICTs and engineering, where the figures are lowest, under 30% in both of those cases. And you've already outlined the reasons why this is important. So I think we have to be trying to, what we say, crack the code. So in 2017, about 5 years ago now, we tried to crack the code and in a publication to try to understand what these factors are, both holding girls back and as well as facilitating their participation in science and the related fields. And what we see is that there are things at many different levels, and so that means we have to be active at many different levels, as well as you've outlined also in the call to action. So at the individual level, we often hear things like, and this is astonishing to still hear this at this time, but that boys' brains are somehow hardwired differently, that they're hardwired to be better at maths and better at science, and we hear it from parents, we hear it from teachers, and we hear it from girls and boys themselves. And there's absolutely nothing in the neuroscience and biology on anything that gives any predisposition to boys to be good in these subjects. And we can see that also in results, because girls are now outperforming boys in many countries around the world in these topics and at increasing levels. So there's nothing in the brain itself, but it's a stereotype, I think, that we have to crack. We also see it in parents and peers, which is the next level that a girl has around her. And this can be the books that she has exposure to, whether girls figure as scientists, as astronauts, as all these different important fields. It also is the messages that parents can give to their girls about whether or not these fields are right for them. Are they concerned about them being male-dominated spaces, which they often are? I was in a meeting recently where someone raised their hand and they were speaking in a conference on STEM, and they were the only girl in their cohort of 35 students in the field in science. And so it can be, as we may hear, likely a difficult space to be in. And parents are also cognizant of this, and they can hear about violence or discrimination in the workplace, and they're concerned about their girls. So often we have to look at what's happening around girls at the parental level. Schools are very important also spaces. They're the space where a child gets the most socialization as a child and a young person. And there are factors inside the school environment which can also hold them back, whether that be a lack of representation in textbooks, whether it be differential treatment in the classroom around who gets access to the lab equipment or to the computer, or who gets to give feedback in a leadership role on the outcome of an activity. And often this bias is not inherent, it's unconscious. And so we have to look with teachers also on how to unpack that bias, which often happens in classrooms, and how to empower them to use other materials in the classroom, because changing textbooks and changing learning materials takes a very long time. And finally, we have to look at the level of the media, because often you can change things in classrooms, you can work with parents, but if you still don't have access in newspapers, in the films that girls are looking at, on social media, all of these things. So it's really about increasing, a lack of representation, significant amount of stereotypes at different levels, and messages also that these fields are not for girls when they absolutely are.
Great, thank you very much, Justine. And I hope that these were some good messages for our students and also for their teachers who are listening to us today. Just to continue on another question, so how, from UNESCO's side, what are we doing to support students, and particularly girls, to study and to work in science fields?
So I have a few images I want to show you of some programs in different settings. But as I mentioned, if these factors exist at different levels, we have to work at different levels. So we have to work with girls and boys, we have to work with the parents and their caregivers, we have to work with the schools, obviously, and all of the staff inside of that system, as well as with the media. So I'm going to give you some examples of some of the different things that we've been supporting here. What you see on the screen here is the results of some of our teacher training programs that we've held, with a big focus on sub-Saharan Africa. And it's a cooperation between the education and the science sectors. We've been working hand in hand on this work across 21 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The images that you can see here are of teachers working with different materials that they can find in their own environment. So you can see the women on the bottom right-hand side making, at least for me, yes, making batteries out of limes that they can get in the local market, with nails that they can also get in the local market. They're making an earthquake machine in the middle with these pieces of wood. We've got them making hands, a robotic hand with straws, and making dancing raisins, which is a very fun experiment that you can see here. And so it's really about working with teachers to help them kind of look at how can they make these topics interesting, using materials that are in the world around them, to the extent possible. So this is one aspect of it, but we can't stop there, because we also have to help them address the things that I've already mentioned. So supporting them to think about unconscious bias, the way that they interact with kids in the classroom, the materials that they bring into the classroom, and how they can do these things differently. We call this gender responsive or gender transformative pedagogy, and it's really important that we look at this also with teachers, and the interactions we've had on this have been absolutely fascinating and amazing. And I've seen some of the people involved in this actually at the statistics conference across the hall, which has been quite exciting. So we work a lot with teachers because they are really key to solving this problem. If you look on the next slide, we're also doing a lot of work going into communities. So these images are from Brazil. They're part of what we call Educa STEM 2030. It's a new initiative. It's not new, actually. We've had this initiative since 2019 now in Brazil. And it's got multiple aspects. So we, again, are working with teachers, but we're also going into communities and trying to address these stereotypes. We've been working with a group called Cine Solar, which brings vans and cinemas into communities in very far-flung communities, including in the Amazon. And we show images and films that try to break this representation. We invite children, as you can see here, but we also invite their parents. So really trying to work at different levels here. And it's all solar powered, so we're also bringing in a dimension which is linking STEM with the environment, which again is very important in many countries. You can see this also in the next slide, which is also part of the work in Brazil. It's part of a coloring book set of materials that we have. We've developed different teaching and learning materials for use in schools and in other learning facilities. We've done it in cooperation with girls. They're trying to bring in role models of women in STEM into, and you can see this is the coloring book aspect, but obviously each of these has information on the person who's done. It includes Indigenous women from their own communities. And again, it's very important that girls can relate to these women, relate to these opportunities. And so we have different games and materials through this project. And just to say, on the 7th of March, around International Women's Day, we will have one of the girls participating in this program here across the hall as part of a launch of a new film that's showcasing some of this work, which you're all very welcome to join. And in the next slide, I just want to say, you also spoke earlier about contests and sort of recognizing women's accomplishments in STEM. This is an image from Mali. We've been supporting a Miss Mali Science or Miss Science Mali competition there, which has been picked up by the government of Mali. We no longer support it directly. And again, it's offering girls not only the opportunity to gain interest in these things, but also to be recognized for the work that they're doing and really promote their achievements and build their confidence, which is very important. Often we see, even when girls outperform boys in these topics, their levels of confidence are lower. They don't believe that they're good in these topics. So these types of initiatives also address this self-efficacy gap that we see. And I think the last image that I have here, yes, is just advocacy. So a lot of work on advocacy with parents, with teachers, with communities, bringing together different countries so that they can learn from each other's experience and really try to advance girls' participation in these fields. And finally, I just wanted to say that we are fully behind the efforts for the call to action and very excited to work with you and others around its promotion and its advancement at the level of countries.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Justine. This was very, very interesting. Even for me, I didn't know about all of these different initiatives. So it's excellent to hear. And I hope it was also something inspiring for the classes that are listening to us, the classes that are here and online as well. So I will give the floor now to the classes that are online, if we could see them on the screen. And to see if they have some questions for Justine before we move to the other speaker. Great. So maybe Winner and Xiaomi from ISC London. Did anybody had no questions? Anybody had a question online? Great, we have our school in Greece. Please. The floor is yours.
The statements you made are really interesting, but given the equality, there should be an equal payment. But according to the statistics, most of the time there isn't. So my question is, how will you make sure that there is an equal payment between men and women in the work field of science? And in case that there isn't, what are the consequences and to whom will they be enforced?
The question was about the payment. Sorry, we didn't hear you very well. Maybe we can just increase the sound here. The question was about the differences in... Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
In the payment in the work field of science between men and women?
The different payments, as in salaries?
Yes, in salaries.
don't think I'm the best place to be speaking about payments at this level. We're very much focused, at least in education, on before you enter into the workforce. So I don't know if you might like to answer this instead.
Yes, just very briefly. We do have in certain countries the differences in payments, and the idea really is to introduce policies for equal pay. I mean, that is the minimum that would be required definitely to ensure that there is equal pay for equal work among the different workers in STEM workforce and at the different universities, of course. But there are many countries indeed today which already have these policies in place, particularly to ensure that for the work done at the same level, you actually are paid in the same way. So if some of the worries may be related to the fact that you may, as a girl, as a woman, be less paid, entering into science careers, it is less and less the case, and it shouldn't necessarily be something to discourage girls from thinking about their scientific careers.
Thank you. We have one more question for you. We would like to ask you, because in many religions, women are prevented from studying and even going to school. In these cases, how does UNESCO help these women study and work in STEM?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we can or should put this on religion itself. I think there are a lot of factors that are leading towards inequality in different settings. Patriarchy is a word which often people don't like us to use, but I think it is still an issue in many contexts where there's a lot of inequality. Your point is noted. I think what we do in education is very much supporting, obviously, beyond STEM. I mean, STEM, if you like, is a bit of an, for us in the context of looking at gender equality in education, right? You have to have first access. We want you to be learning. We want you to be participating, and we want you to have equal education pathways. So the equal education pathways and opportunities are very much linked, obviously, to STEM. They're linked to technical and vocational education and training, and essentially to any aspect where we see difference in representation between girls and boys. To address participation, obviously, I think it's a similar thing. I mean, you're looking at the ecosystem of what's holding girls back from education. I think, and to look at a positive lens on this, I think since 2015, we have 50 million more girls enrolled in education. If you look at higher education, we now have more women in higher education than we have men. So there is a lot of progress in many places. There are still pockets of disadvantage. We still need to focus very much on these contexts and remove any violation to the right to education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Justine. Let's continue with the hands here, and then we're going to go in the back. We saw you. You will have the chance to ask your question. We have the class from Romania. Please, go ahead.
How do you think increasing the representation of women in STEM fields specifically benefits the development and innovation with those industries?
I think it's very, very clear that not having half of the population involved in the development of science and the advancements of innovation and technology and science is a loss to science. It's a loss to the products that are developed in science. It's a loss to the development economies of countries and to the advancements of countries itself. I think if you look, just to give an example quite far back, when seatbelts were initially developed, they were developed by men only, and women, and they did not suit women, and women's lives were in danger because they were not suited for all body types. I mean, it's a very obvious example, if you like, but I think we see it also in technology. UNESCO published a report a few years back which looked at, and it seems perhaps very, how can you say, anodin, not so important maybe, but the little boxes that we use to ask for what the weather is going to be like outside or to put music on, they were initially configured to only be women. And when you asked them to do something for you, if you said something sexually explicit or discriminatory in any way towards women, it used to be configured that these chatbots would say, "I'd blush if I could," which is shocking. I mean, so basically we're hardwiring into technology acceptance of discrimination and bias. And so I think it's very obvious for us, I think, in many different ways, but also we have to look at the challenges that the world faces today: climate change, lack of biodiversity, more and more crises and natural disasters. We cannot face these challenges without ensuring the participation of all. So I think it's so important.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I hope you're happy with the question. Great. Please, we have one question in the back of the room. The floor is yours.
Victoria Barres, l'Association Montessori Internationale. Je suis ravie de cette journée, de voir autant de jeunes filles et aussi les écoles qui sont online. Je crois que la nouvelle technologie nous permet de faire des innovations qu'on ne pouvait pas faire avant. Ma question concerne le STEM par rapport au STEAM, c'est-à-dire il y avait un effort à un moment donné d'intégrer les arts dans les STEM, justement pour faire le lien entre science et culture et art. Donc j'aimerais bien savoir si c'est complètement mort ou si c'est une possibilité qui peut être renouvelée, parce que je pense qu'il y a trop de silos dans le monde aujourd'hui et l'art permet justement ce lien entre les sciences et ça encouragerait beaucoup de jeunes filles et garçons. Merci.
En fait, non, c'est pas mort, cette initiative. On travaille toujours sur les arts et ce qu'on appelle art and design, typiquement. C'est juste qu'on intègre normalement aussi dans l'acronyme STEM. Donc, c'est pas mort. On pense que c'est toujours important. L'initiative sur les STEM, en fait, on essaie toujours de ne pas travailler en silo. Donc, voilà, je peux pas, voilà, c'est pas mort. C'est toujours intégré. Et même les dimensions que j'ai montrées, ça intègre aussi des éléments de art aussi dedans.
Thank you very much, Justine. I hope that the ones who are connected online manage to switch their interpretation and understood this also in English. And the last question for Justine, please go ahead.
Bonjour, mon nom est Abada Simon, je suis enseignante chercheuse en astrophysique et adhérente de l'association Femmes et Sciences, grâce à laquelle je suis venue ici. J'entendais pas très bien tout ce qui a été dit en anglais, enfin j'ai essayé de suivre. Je n'ai pas entendu de dénonciation du patriarcat explicitement ou de la domination masculine. Et je vais être plus précise. Il me semble que ce qui exclut les femmes et empêche les femmes et les filles de réussir, particulièrement dans les sciences difficiles, ce sont les violences les plus traumatisantes, à savoir d'une part les mutilations génitales féminines. Le 6 février, je crois, a été la journée internationale de lutte contre les mutilations génitales féminines, qui commence parfois quand les petites filles sont des bébés, à quelques mois après leur naissance. Ça laisse des traces dans le corps et le cerveau, et forcément, ça impacte les aptitudes cognitives. Et ensuite, puisqu'on parle d'école, dès l'école préélémentaire, donc dès l'âge de 3 ans, par exemple, pour les enfants en France, il y a un nombre effroyable de violences sexuelles, pas seulement dans la famille, mais aussi à l'école et dans tout le cursus scolaire et universitaire, qui exclut les femmes, qui les détruit, qui les pousse au suicide. Actuellement, notamment en France, ce problème est étouffé. Les enfants ne sont pas protégés. Je suis un exemple pas franchement vivant de ce problème.
Merci. Thank you.
So I've been asked to speak in English, so I will continue in English. I think, obviously, harmful traditional practices, violence inside of the home and inside of schools, around schools, in any setting, none of these things is acceptable. I'm a bit speechless in response to your comment. I think we have to be. We're speaking very specifically, aren't we, about women in science? It's one aspect of gender equality, but we have to take action across all aspects of the equality dynamic and ensure that. It sounds, I don't want to sound too much too UN-y around, right to education, right to health, right to safety, right to protection, but that's what we are wanting for everyone, and we have to work across multiple fronts to ensure that there is safety inside of all spaces, that there is equality. Our director for the Division for Gender Equality earlier today was speaking about how long it will take to achieve gender equality in society. By some estimates, 300 years if we keep up at the current pace. We can't keep up at this pace. It's obviously not working. So we have to be taking action across multiple fronts, across multiple settings, and calling on women and men and people in all of their diversity to seek more equal futures.
Thank you so much, Justine. We still have two speakers with us, so we're going to have to move on. And I am very pleased now to ask a few questions to our next speaker. Sunshine, you have won the L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Award from the regional program for the Caribbean. You are the student, PhD student and soil science technician at the University of the West Indies. You had groundbreaking research on modeling spatial and temporal trends in soil quality for climate change resilience, and that's why you got also the L'Oréal UNESCO Young Talents Award. You're also a role model for other young girls, breaking gender barriers, encouraging female participation in the STEM field, and we are really, really very pleased to have you here with us today. So we would want to hear a little bit about your personal story, about your personal experience, and in particular, did you have any specific challenges that you had to face because you were a woman who were passionate about science? And if you did, how did you handle that, and how did you manage to overcome these challenges and become the scientist that you are today?
Hi, good morning. My name is Sunshine. I was already introduced, but let me give you a little background about myself. I am from the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago. I think one of your graphics had like the proportion of women scientists, and Trinidad was there. And if you see, like, we do have a very good gap between women and men in science, particularly at my university. And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture in Trinidad. Our first leader was a historian, Dr. Eric Williams, and he strongly believed in education and the role that education will play. So we had very early on in the inception of our country laws that made it so that all children had access to education. And we also have laws that would make it that made it so that children would be fed in schools. So, like the wealth discrepancy between the education system wasn't very large for us. And tertiary education is also free for all. And so that made it possible for all of us to access basically the same opportunities up to a certain point at university level. Because as we age, as women get older, we tend to start to think about families and raising families, and that would divert our direction in science, because now you have to worry about, can I do both? Can I have a family and can I continue on this career path? I think that is where most of my struggle would have originated from. Like, can I continue along this path and can I also have a family? The other struggle is, of course, the biases, because my field is in environmental science, and you often have to go out in the field for long periods. There are no washrooms. You have your cycle to consider. You also have to be very physical, and you're surrounded by men. So there's often a safety issue within the university. My university, I'm very fortunate that they made a lot of allowances for me in order to pursue my research. They provided the tools and resources that was necessary for me to succeed.
Great, thank you very much. And we often do get this question around, thinking about families and continuing science career, and how is that different from continuing some other careers. And I think that your explanation was interesting, and also it is true that really at the moment where we're finishing the PhD and getting into the science, that's also the moment where we are thinking about families. So it really is particularly difficult, I think, for women scientists to kind of reconcile motherhood in a way and also pursuing the family careers. So what do you think could be put in place? Maybe I'm a little bit diverting from the questions here, but just thinking about that, what could be put in place to help in this particular case, so that women don't have to necessarily choose between being a mother or being a scientist? And then another question also is, thinking about science, do we have to start learning science a little bit earlier in the career paths? And would that then also be more helpful moving on in the career paths for women scientists? So kind of two questions, one following up on the previous one, and another question on education.
I think I'll answer your question, your first question first. I mean, your second question first. In terms of should children be introduced to science a lot earlier, I say as soon as possible. And like toys should have a scientific spin to it. Our education, our online education for children should have like a science session and make it more interactive. So instead of just having like an online learning lesson, you also have a kit that goes along with it, so children would learn visually as well as interactively. I think that's important to consider going forward. And the first question was, what can we do to allow women to continue? We often talk about gender equality, but we fail sometimes to consider that genders are also different. We as women are different from men, and we require different things in the university context where I'm from in order to continue on the path and succeed. And I think one of those things will be childcare. So allow women to have childcare on campus so that you can bring your child there for early childcare and stuff like that. Have schools around the area that's close enough so that a woman scientist can drop their child to school, then come to work, and also allow for flexibility in terms of time. I think COVID taught us, the pandemic taught us that we can work from home, a lot of instances, like where it's possible, like allow women to work from home in order to, see about her family as well as her work, like attend to her work duties.
Thank you very much. It resonates very much with experiences we've heard from a lot of other women scientists. Childcare, affordable, close to the working space, and flexible working hours, definitely something that will help women stay in science and advance in science, and then starting with science education, STEM education as early on as possible, and throughout the different activities, not just in schools, but also outside school as well. So thanks so much for answering my questions. And now we're going to go back online to our 6 classes and see if there are any questions coming from our students. Okay. All right, so we see the hands are up from the school from the UK, London. Please go ahead.
So it's basically just a question in general. So I would like to ask that you said that you wanted to encourage little girls in becoming scientists because of the huge gap between men and women, but how exactly would you do that?
So for me, I think it's very important to have role models. And I think my visibility in my country, talking to women or young girls that are considering the next steps, to allow them to hear my experience. So parents would often sort of discourage women or girls from entering into scientific fields because they don't understand. They have their own perceptions of it. My experience would, allow students the opportunity to hear what the university has to offer and what allowances can be made. So if you want to pursue something that is often male-dominated, like the field that I am in, it shows that it's possible as long as you want to do it and you have the support from the university, and then it's possible.
Thank you very much. Cameroon, you can now put your microphone on.
This question is directed to Anna Persig. How can we overcome the barriers we might encounter both from parents and stereotype minds of the female gender?
Yes, thank you again for this question. It is what we've been talking about the most here. It is true that it's at that level, at kind of dismantling these stereotypes, that is the most important thing. And that's why I think there's so many different levels, and I think that teachers and schools have a huge role to play also in that sense. Educational materials that need to be revised so that we have more women scientists as role models. Media, as Justine was saying before, the representation of women in the media, on social media, the role of people like Sunshine and other young scientists who can tell not just young girls, but also their families that it makes sense to be a scientist for those who want to pursue the scientific career. Outreach activities, some of them were also mentioned by Justine in terms of what UNESCO is trying to do. So working, again, not just in school, but also outside the school to try to dismantle some of these gender barriers, talking to parents, talking to caregivers, showing the different pathways, showing the different options, as Sunshine was saying as well. All of this is important, and it needs to be done constantly, because we have also seen that even in places where we have managed to break some of these stereotypes, very quickly it can go backwards. So we constantly have to have the effort and put the effort in making sure that girls really are encouraged and supported to do science if that is what they would like to do, and that there is an equal career path opportunity for both boys and girls. Oh, I see 2 other questions. So one is from our school from Romania.
What is the biggest obstacle you had to go through when you first went into the science domain? How did you face?
I think it was for Sunshine. What was the biggest obstacle and how did you go around it? How did you address it?
I think the biggest obstacle was the gender-based stereotypes, because, as I said, my field is largely male-dominated, and I think when I entered, I was one of the first women to enter my particular department as a woman in environmental science, particularly focused on soil science. So the men would often treat me like I was fragile. So they would try to shelter me, which is a positive thing. But I had to also let them know I'm also capable of doing it on my own. Like, just show me how to do it. So yeah, that was the biggest obstacle. It doesn't sound that bad because it really wasn't, and it was just a conversation to be had and let the other people around me know that I am capable. So allow me to do it myself.
Great, thank you so much. We have the school from Greece first and Portugal after that.
Okay, so firstly, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. So my question would be, what actions or laws can educational institutions and the educational system take and ensure that the equality working STEM is promoted?
Okay. I think, as I said before, what the university in particular can do is allow a lot more flexibility in terms of work hours and time, because women are often caregivers to our families. So our time allocation should be a lot more flexible in order to allow us to continue along a research path. A lot of research can be done remotely. We just need a computer. And then, like, if we need access to the lab, allow us to come in, like, after hours to use the lab and stuff like that would be very helpful, particularly to me as my journey continues as a researcher. I believe, like, some of these things will be very helpful in my path.
Great, thank you so much. We have also the school from Nigeria, if you would like to ask your question.
Hey, good morning. I'm by name Ochoche Deborah from Wesley High School, Benue State, Nigeria. Okay, my question is to the second speaker. We observe that in almost all the girls in my class want to study medicine or nursing. So what can we do as students to stir up interest in other sciences and technological fields?
I think a lot of people want to study medicine because there's a prestige in studying medicine, and also you are well compensated at the end of the day in medicine. You know that if you take this path, you stay on this path, you can clearly see the end result. Whereas my path is in environmental science, more leaning towards the agricultural science. Although our country has a very huge import bill that we're trying to reduce, you can see in the governmental policies that they're not putting enough effort into actually supporting the reduction of our food bill through the promotion of agriculture in our country. So I think what should happen is that the government needs to stay away from only giving scholarships to allow for people to go into medicine, and more diversify the STEM scholarships to more environmental scholarships, agricultural scholarships, because that is where our global challenges lie right now, is in some of these environmental challenges that we have, and we're not really seeing it in terms of the governmental policies in giving out fellowships and scholarships in these areas.
Justine, did you want to?
I just wanted to say something really quickly, which I think these things are all super important. One other aspect that we don't see in many places is career counseling and guidance, which often can expand students' understanding of different careers. I think it's often, I mean, I don't know how I chose a career before the internet. I think even now children have much more exposure to what different jobs could look like, but I think the more exposure you can get to what different career pathways look like, educational pathways look like, some of that can happen through the role models and mentors that girls can get access to, but better career counseling that also promotes different pathways in STEM beyond only medicine is also very important.
Excellent, thank you very much. So yes, it is important to get exposure to the different different sciences, different disciplines, and what you can do in terms of your career once you get into those. I wanted to be a medical doctor as well, because I thought that was more or less everything you could do with science. Then turned and saw that there is marine biology, which was something really interesting. I lived close to seaside, so it made sense. Ended up working in ecology, ecotoxicology, and then find myself here. So it is really important to talk to other scientists. It would be great if your school, after this event, would invite some other female scientists from Nigeria to talk to you and to see, what are the different career paths, what are the different disciplines, what do they mean, what do you study, and how do you get to be a scientist in different disciplines than medicine. Not that medicine is not important, it still, of course, is, but it is true that there is so much more out there. I'm also conscious a little bit of the time. We have another speaker. I have still a school from Portugal that hasn't spoken yet. A couple of questions in the back, and then we're going to have to move on to the next speaker, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions to the next speaker as well. So yes, Portugal, please.
Good morning, and we would like to ask you, how can you encourage women to participate in the areas of science when many of them are dominated by men, and the girls or women don't have the opportunity?
I think in order to encourage women into science, there should be a discussion. Like, the woman, of course, needs to be interested in the field, but as long as the interest is there, then she needs to find a mentor, and mentorship is really important. Like, my mentor is actually the dean of my faculty, and he's been instrumental in allowing me to have all the tools that I need to succeed, because again, we're equal, but we're different. So I may require a lot different tools than my male colleagues do. And my mentor recognized that and provided these tools to me.
That's great. And I think this idea of mentorship and mentors besides role models is really something that is important. And it is important, again, from the very early stages in education and then in careers. I'll turn to the room for a couple of other questions, and then we're going to have to move on to our next speaker, equally interesting. So yes, I see a hand over there. Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here representing the Cercle FSER. It's a non-profit organization that works to promote a link between science and society. And we have outreach programs involving tens of thousands of students across France to directly meet scientists. And we try for the most students possible to meet working women in science, so implementing the promotion of role models, like you said. There is apparently some data showing that programs uniquely targeting girls, so for example, women scientists only meeting girls in schools, work better to improve girl confidence. And we want to do things that work, that has been said in the introduction. And that is something that is very dear to the work that we do. Do you have any ideas on how to better involve boys in this conversation, and maybe activities targeting only boys? And how can we get men to be interested in this question as much as women? Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll take another question. I think there was another question in the back there, and then maybe we can combine the two answers as well. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Micheline, and I'm a student from Lycée Saint-Exupéry. I remember vividly the concept of confidence being brought up somewhere in the talk. So my question is, why do you think, and what advice do you have for women and young girls when experiencing self-doubt in STEM and overcoming imposter syndrome, even after achieving significant accomplishments?
Great, thank you. Thank you for the question. The last question here. Do you want to ask your question very quickly? Vous voulez poser votre question?
Donc, je représente la Fédération mondiale des travailleurs scientifiques. Je voudrais simplement dire que les femmes, nous ne sommes pas innocentes. Nous ne sommes pas que des victimes. nous transmettons aussi et nous reproduisons nous-mêmes les préjugés. Et je voudrais faire un appel aux filles pour être beaucoup plus audacieuses. Et par exemple, on sait qu'au niveau supérieur, les filles sont meilleures en maths que les garçons. Or, lorsqu'elles choisissent une voie scientifique, elles choisissent les sciences de la vie, c'est-à-dire majoritairement la biologie, la médecine, etc., au détriment des sciences dites nobles, physique, informatique. Alors stop, nous-mêmes, arrêtons de reproduire les préjugés. Soyons plus audacieuses.
Merci beaucoup. So we have to a call for girls to be more audacious and more self-confident, which goes back to the question that was asked before about what needs to be done, what can we do as girls, as women, when self-doubting ourselves, particularly in the STEM fields, and then also the question about involving boys, involving men, in promoting gender equality in science, I think for both of you maybe.
Okay, I'll focus on the question about self-confidence. And I think, again, for me, that was surrounding yourself with people. Like, I've never been told that I can do something, which is weird. Like, I think my parents were always very supportive. They wanted me to be a medical doctor, but I'm becoming a doctor nevertheless. So I think they're proud of that. And they always encouraged me. I also had good friends around me that when I had doubts about it, they would be like, no, you've got this. And I still do suffer from imposter syndrome. But again, my mentors and like doing stuff like this always helps boost my self-confidence. I would say anytime you have some sort of self-doubt and you get an opportunity, say yes. Say yes to every opportunity, and every opportunity that comes your way, it would help boost your self-confidence.
Nice, I like that. Please, Justine.
I mean, I think your point is very important. We have to be looking also at girls and boys and women and men. All of the work that we support does that. It doesn't, we do look at spaces that are safe spaces for girls to thrive and to get interest and motivation into these subjects, but we're also very much looking at classroom dynamics and how girls and boys can interact. The teachers are obviously, unfortunately, overwhelmingly male in these topics. In terms of the teacher training, we don't have enough women who are teaching science and maths in most countries, and even worse when you look at technology. So I think we're working with men in terms of teachers and school administrators, but also boys inside of classrooms. When we talk about gender responsive or gender transformative pedagogy, it's not specifically focused on girls. It's helping teachers understand that what is holding girls back, what is holding boys back, what are holding non-binary children back inside of the classroom in terms of learning, and how can they focus their teaching practice so that everyone is learning, everyone is participating. So it's not a one-off thing. I think often when we talk about gender, there's still, unfortunately, too often an implicit understanding we're only talking about girls and women, but no, it's really about what are the different roles, expectations we have, and how can we help create more equal roles and expectations and opportunities.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to have to move on. We will have time for a little bit more questions, but we are moving on, and we have somebody also very exciting with us today. The last guest we have is from Senegal. We welcome Salma Silambe, who is a PhD in astrophysics at Cheikh Anta Diop University in Senegal, and she's the first female astrophysicist in her country. So quite an accomplishment, an exceptional woman and an exceptional scientist. Outside of her research, Salma is very much engaged also in raising awareness of STEM education, particularly for young girls, and to motivate them. She is part of the Organization of Women in Science for Developing World, associated with UNESCO, member of the World Federation of Scientific Workers as well, that Josette was just pointing to before. Incredible career, incredible accomplishments, and we will learn a lot from you as well. So, Salma, a couple of questions from me to start. So, it is really amazing that you are the first woman astrophysicist in Senegal. What made you want to do that? And did the school that you went to, did it help you in accomplishing this goal, or was it not through school, maybe through some other structures that were helpful in your path?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to Royal UNESCO, to APNUS for the invitation. I am very happy to participate to the event, celebration of women, celebration of science, International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And to come back to the question about Anna, yes, you know, I had been interested in astronomy since secondary school, and I had loved to look at the sky, to observe the stars, their brightness, and sometimes try to count them. However, for doing a PhD in astrophysics, was born later at the university during my postgraduate degrees in atomic and nuclear physics, when I met an astrophysicist from Belgium working on music or sound of stars during an international conference in Senegal. And I decided to do a PhD in astrophysics, but it was not immediately possible. As you know, astronomy, astrophysics was not taught in our universities in Senegal. I was able to do the PhD many years after through collaboration, through scholarship as a grant from the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World, or WSD, that allow me to do scientific visits, to do observation at the Kadi Ayat Observatory in Morocco, and also another program, the African Initiative for Planetary and Space Sciences. It is a network that promotes collaboration between African countries to develop space sciences and astronomy. And with the program and the scholarship, and I was able to begin the PhD with collaborations for my university and Paris Observatory, University of Antwerp in Belgium also, and the Kadi Ayat Observatory in Morocco. And in addition of my PhD, I was very involved in astronomy outreach and science awareness. For that, I represent the International Astronomical Union for Outreach Program in Senegal. I am the National Outreach Coordinator, and with a lot of collaboration, I initiated more program like training the trainer for secondary schools, and also organize competition to reward best astronomy clubs in Senegal, and also organize astronomy inclusive, organize workshop to elementary schools. And to back to the scientist side, in Senegal, I am responsible of a network of camera to monitor constantly the sky, to observe meteorite fall zones. And it is an international network created in France. Yes, it is that I want to share for you for now.
Great, and it's really, really interesting how you have collaborated and moved and found different opportunities every time just to progress in your goals and in your career. I think it's very inspiring and very, very motivating, and particularly in a field that, again, is not necessarily an easy field, and it is definitely male-dominated as well. But I also had another question for you, Salma, because you're an astrophysicist, you probably know about technology a lot. And another question that we've been asking ourselves a little bit these days is how can we use technology better to make learning science more exciting in school? What different methods of learning science, of teaching science, using technology we can do today to encourage science studies for both boys and girls, and then in particular for girls?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I begin to speak about technology in astrophysics. You know, in astrophysics, technology is very important because it's technology that drives research forward. That help to explore so far the universe and to go through like thousands of light years with space missions. Like, as you know, the largest space mission launched in 2021, the James Webb Space Telescope, and also computer and also computer program. And you know, also now, if we take the observation in Earth, the most important dream for observers in astronomy is to have a robotic observatory. What means a robotic observatory? A robotic observatory is to can monitor remotely a telescope and to make observation in the comfort of our living room, just using a computer and a program computer. Yes, and if you do that, we are protected from the wind, from the cold of the mountains, you know, and yes, and you know, also now we have a lot of data in astronomy. So programming using computer science is very important to process the data because it enables to go faster and to get results more accurately. And to make, yes, to back to the question, to use digital technology to, yes, to motivate younger people, to motivate girls to do science. I think it is very important. And for that, we need to use more technology to more technology to teach science. Like sometimes it is difficult to have material. I speak if we are in Africa, it is sometimes difficult to have equipment. And if we use digital technology like simulation, and it is easier to explain some phenomena. And if the younger people can see the demonstration using technology, and that make it more motivated to choose science, technology, or mathematics. And I think, yes, we need to use technology. We need to use computer science to motivate younger people, to motivate girls to do STEM.
Great, thank you very much. And I really very much appreciate the fact that we do have remote access to some of the infrastructures today, and taking advantage of that, again, as technology that we have today, to also boost interest from younger students in science might be something to consider. We have now an initiative in UNESCO where we work with different institutions, scientific institutions in different countries from the South in terms of remote access to some of the infrastructures that are needed to do science. And it can also be used for STEM education and for promoting interest in science as well. So great, Salma, it was great to have your answers to my questions, and I'm happy now to give back to the screen first for the 6 schools that we have connected. If there are any questions for Salma, oh, I have a lot of hands here. So I'll start from the beginning of my screen with the school from Cameroon first.
We thought about implementing a project in the science field. We want to teach females at the elementary stages on the corrosive aspects of acids. How can UNESCO help guide us in the implementation of this project?
Okay, I think it's a question for UNESCO. Justine?
I didn't hear exactly what the example was, but I think we have opportunities to connect schools to role models. We have opportunities to connect schools to materials. And if you want to reach out via the organizers to ask your question more directly, we can certainly try to see how we can help with that.
Yeah, that's great. If you have a specific project in mind, you can definitely reach out.
Can I just say, though, it's amazing. I mean, it's a fantastic, you're already thinking about an initiative you can do with students younger than you. So that's kudos, congratulations already for having that foresight.
That's great. So you can really reach out, connect, and then through Justine or us, we can see what else is happening similarly and how we can support you in that. Wonderful. Now I have the school from Romania, please.
Along your career, has there been one woman in this field who has specifically inspired you to continue and that you consider a role model?
Salma, this is a great question for you. Was there a specific woman role model that kind of guided you in your career?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, for my PhD, I was inspired by an astrophysicist, but she is astrophysicist not from Senegal. She is from Belgium, and she guides me a lot, and she is also my mentor, and she is one of my supervisor for my PhD. And yes, I think it is important to speak about mentor, to speak about role model. Maybe if before I knew the role model, maybe I began my PhD earlier. Yes, as I say, it is important to have a role model in all fields in science. It is very important. That we try to do for our part is as a board member of the African Network for Astronomy in Africa, we try to make visible astrophysicists around Africa and to give to younger people the opportunity to know about astrophysics. And I think in all the specialty in science, if we do that, we can improve all the specialties in STEM.
Thank you very much, Salma. The question from Portugal now, please.
What motivated you to overcome the obstacles you faced in pursuing your PhD?
And what was the biggest challenge you faced while trying to do this?
The big challenge was in Senegal. We have not expert in Senegal, and to expert in astrophysics, I want to say, it was possible to do the PhD between collaboration, and thanks to astronomy is global, is global, and it was possible to have collaboration and to do the PhD. The big challenges was to have collaboration outside, and also the other challenges was to go sometimes so far of my family. Yes.
Thank you very much, Salma. Yes, we have the UK school now, please.
So my question is actually targeted for all the representatives in the headquarters and in the hall, and especially for Salma. So my question was, when you became a scientist, was it to inspire little girls, or was it generally just your passion?
We start with you, Sunshine, and then we'll go to Salma.
Like for me, I was always good at science, so I just went with what I was good at, and then I realized in university that I was passionate about assessing spatial trends and in terms of the environment. So I knew I wanted to go along the lines of trending and doing models, spatial models for the environment. So it's a combination of knowing my strengths and also realizing my passion as I, played with my strengths.
Nice. And Salma, for you,
Yes,
what was the motivation?
Yes, the motivation was I was very interested in mathematics. I loved mathematics before I know physics. Yes, at the secondary schools, yes, I love mathematics. And when I was at the high school, I discovered physics. And when I discovered physics, I say later I will do math and physics. And when I go at the university, it was not possible to do. Yes, but when I go at the university, yes, I was begin to do my study in yes in physics and chemistry. Yes, and after the study in physics and chemistry, I do study in atomic and nuclear physics. The most motivation was to discover again, yes, it was to participate more in the future discovery in science, because I loved to read books and to know the advancements in science. And and in my head I say yes, I would like one day participate to the development, participate to the discovery of the new challenge in science. That was my motivation.
Nice, thank you. So I guess from the two answers, it was passion for science and discovery and trying to be part of something bigger later on. And then I think being a mentor for younger girls comes a little bit later, as both of them have pursued their careers. But I guess one can also start a scientific career thinking about right away being a role model for those that are younger. So that's also an interesting way of getting into science to begin with. So great. The last question here is from Greece, please.
Hello. I would like to ask you, how can UNESCO and people individually support women so they gain confidence? And where can a woman address help if needed when her community doesn't support her goals, her initiatives, and her studies? Where can women find help?
I think she asked like if when can UNESCO
Oh,
help,
UNESCO, yeah.
but I mean I'm living proof of UNESCO's help because they offer a lot of programs that would recognize women, and the award that I won, it is to be used towards my specific research and in promoting me and helping me as my career advances. So there are opportunities there where UNESCO helps.
Right, thank you. And I think some of the initiatives that you were talking about similarly help.
So I spoke already about some of these initiatives, but what I wanted to say in response to your question is that UNESCO didn't parachute itself into these countries to do this work. We were asked by the countries to support this work. And I think what we are seeing more and more now is an interest in countries to address the issue of gender gaps in science and gender gaps in STEM or STEAM more broadly. And so I think what we're quite pleased to see, obviously, the priorities that's been given to continental strategies, to countries' national action plans, to education sector plans, and I think I hope that this is the case also for your country, but there does seem to be growing interest by governments in supporting girls to take more up in these fields.
And definitely there are associations that deal with some of these issues. Something to look for on your own individually, also to see what is happening in your country, in your school, around your school, etc. There are more and more associations like the one that we are doing this event with today also, that look into some of these questions and where you can actually go and talk and start getting your networks and start getting some support from those that are more or less in a similar situation that you are at as well. I think, again, looking at the clock, we have come to the end of this session. We have very much enjoyed this exchange. I think it was very useful for us to get some perspectives and some feedbacks from the 6 high schools that are part of the UNESCO campus. We have one burning question here in the back, so please, that's going to be our last question for today, and then we're going to have to wrap up for the morning session. Yes, please go ahead.
Du coup, moi, ma question, c'était est-ce que dans votre vie, en fait, il y a un moment, vous vous êtes senti découragée, en fait, en tant que femme scientifique?
Interesting. So, in your life, did you ever feel discouraged in your path, and what happened at that moment? How did you overcome that moment?
All the time. Like it's not easy. Anything that you want to pursue in life, you'll always have challenges to face. And I guess in terms of overcoming these challenges, you first have to assess the problem, like any good scientist, and then you have to troubleshoot that problem. I think, life is a whole big science experiment. And as long as you want to achieve something, you tend to find a way. So just stay motivated, surround yourself with people that will help motivate you, and the challenges tend to sort themselves out.
Thank you. And say yes, as you said previously. Say yes. I think that's a key message to take home also from this session today. So thank you again. Thank you very much to the students who were with us, their teachers. Thank you to our guests, Justine, Sunshine, and Salma. Thank you to everybody who has helped in the preparation of this campus. It was really a joint work by different divisions also here at UNESCO. Many thanks also to NG Foundation, which has been a supporter of the campus for many years, so thank you very much. We have come to the end of this session. I hope it was useful. I hope it was interesting. Keep thinking about these things. If you have some ideas, get back to us. We'll try to connect different schools or different people to some of your interests. And we invite everybody to come back at 2 p.m. today. You can have lunch upstairs in UNESCO cafeteria or outside, but please be back for the session at 2 p.m. It's going to be another interesting session with very interesting speakers as well. So thank you again for being with us this morning, and looking forward to the sessions that will come after.